The people don't want to hear the truth about Doc Rivers. That's what it is.
All right, now we're live. Let's play the intro.
And the Sixers win it! Wow!
Oh man, and being just posterized Russell Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia Eagles! Let me get a hell yeah!
What is up, everybody? What's happening? It's Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Welcome to Party on Broad. Guys, we're back. We're here talking about Sixers basketball. We are back. Joining me today is my man, Austin. Follow him on Twitter at NBA Crowd. What's up, Austin?
What's going on, Chris? Excited for another season of Sixers basketball, even if it is, January away?
Yes.
Oh, man, it's going to be here before you know it. We got the draft a month away. And you know, that is a perfect segue to my man, Tiago, who wrote a comprehensive Sixers guide to the NBA draft. Follow him on Twitter at TScabby. What up, Tiago?
Oh, man. It's weird, right? It's a weird season that never seems to end. We're still talking about the 2019 Philadelphia Sixers, so, you know, hopefully this nightmare ends soon. So,
Amen, bro. But today we're waiting for Rob. I think he's going to come and join at some point. But today we're talking about a Sixers offseason preview. We're going to go through the free agents, the Sixers free agents, the trade targets. We're going to talk about the NBA draft, our top 3 NBA draft targets for the Philadelphia 76ers. But let's lead off with Doc Rivers, and let's assign a grade. Lead us off, Carl. How would you grade Doc Rivers to the Philadelphia 76ers?
Well, I think it's a 2-part grade. I think you have to evaluate the fact that, number one, he was the best candidate on the market by a pretty significant margin. There was no one better than him available. So in that sense, yeah, A+. In terms of, how does he fit with the Sixers, and maybe, was he truly the best candidate, of all candidates, that are possible in the pool? Who knows? It's time will tell. But I think he was the best candidate out there. I think that's what you grade him by. His resume speaks for itself, and I think everyone says the culture that he has established is typically a very strong culture. I think this team, more than anything, lacks culture. So in that standpoint, I would say it probably grades out at an A.
All right. We have some guests here. Sean says, hi. Thanks for joining, Sean. NBA Burn Account says, what up, goons? There he goes. Tiago hates Doc. So let's lead off with Tiago. What's your grade on Doc, and how does it impact Ben and Joel, man?
Tiago hates anybody that's to ignore him. He just he likes the taboo. He likes the obscure.
Really not. For the record, I do not hate Doc. So you asked the question, the grade, right? The process to get to Doc, I'll give it a straight up F. And the reason why I say that is because we knew back in January that the writing was on the table for Brett Brown. And then between January and, the time that they hired him, there was no process, once again, to really dive deep into what the candidates were. So what I mean by that is college candidates, international candidates, NBA retreads. So the process as a whole was very poor, once again, and they really settled on Doc over a dinner date, a one night kind of thing where Doc romanticized about the future, and they must have bought into what he said. So the process itself, I give it an F. Now the coach is a little different because I do think, to Austin's point, he's going to bring a culture of accountability that I think is very important, and I think that he's going to have the playbook for Ben and Joel to follow and say, listen, these guys, this is how you want to be as a star. And I think that's important because these guys never really had that reference point for them in the past. But from a basketball fit, I am more concerned about his traditional basketball culture and how it's going to fit this very unconventional roster. So as a coach and a fit, I'd probably give it a C minus.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in that A- range. I think any conversation with Doc Rivers begins and ends with the immense amount of respect that this guy has across the league. In my opinion, Ben and Joel's issues are between the years. And if Doc can't reach Ben and Joel mentally, that's a whole other different conversation. We have much bigger issues at hand. But first up, you look at Doc Rivers and his handling of DeAndre Jordan, of Blake Griffin. He convinced DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin in different ways. So for Jordan, Rivers was able to kind of convince him to kind of step away from being an integral part in the offense and just focus on being a defensive beast, which he did. 3 All-NBAs, 2 All-NBA defensive teams. And then for Blake Griffin, before that chemistry really soured, this was a guy that Doc Rivers convinced Blake to, take a more finesse approach to his game. And that was incredibly important because for Joel Embiid, which I'm going to talk about, that's the foundational aspects of Joel Embiid. That's where his game has kind of just stalled and has not really progressed in any way these last several years. So Joel Embiid is a defensive beast. It's all there. But the hope is Doc can help Embiid and Ben kind of offensively from a team aspect moving forward. Ben, I think what I'm hoping for is that we're going to see him become a more active part of the offense and put Ben in better positions to score. If you look at the Clippers offense, you see plays. You wrote an awesome article at the Painted Lines on it, Austin. But you see plays where they're running 3-4 screens every single play. That didn't happen with Brett Brown's offense last year. When guys stopped moving, the offense just went bleh, and there really wasn't an offense. So I'm hoping to see more off-ball movement from Ben, more touches around the basket, get Ben involved in multi-screen actions. That's what I'm hoping to see. And then for Joel, obviously it begins and ends with fitness. If Doc Rivers, like I said, can't connect and reach Joel Embiid to get in shape, that is just a whole other conversation moving forward. But fingers crossed we see Joel Embiid getting the ball less at the three-point line. I think Doc Rivers is really going to bring out the best in Joel in terms of revolving around him to get in shape and get him better touches around the basket rather than on the perimeter. And I think for me, the Dave Joerger signing is the real mystery here. You look at the big three of the Celtics and how they're closer in terms of pace on the bottom third of the league with the Celtics those years, 2007 to 2012. That Dave Joerger's Kings team was third best in pace behind DeAndre Jordan. So I'm really interested to see how those two mesh. And so all signs point to Doc wanting more pace, but I don't really know where that's going to go. What about you, Rob? How you doing, man?
Hey, sorry I was late. When you asked me to be here, I said, all right, I'm coming in with the best basketball minds I know. So I'm going to concede the X's and O's. Conceding all X's and O's to you guys. I'm just coming with a fan's point of view. For number one, when the biggest story in sports in Philadelphia while the Eagles are playing is Doc Rivers being the happiest story, I should say. That just shows you where the Eagles are these days. Number two, listen, everyone said once Brett's gone, it's now time for Ben and Joel to show us what they are. Well, Ben and Joel can't do it with a guy who has had personalities all up and down his coaching pedigree. I mean, you talk about Rondo, you talk about Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, all those guys in the Celtics and all those guys in the Clippers. If they can't play to their potential for him, well, then we know that it's not going to work with these two guys on the floor at the same time. So yep. I'm excited from the pedigree. I'm excited from, as you said, Chris, the respect this guy goes. I'll concede to Tiago. He is an X's and O's master in my mind. And I'm sure that there is concern.
You're the shot doctor, Austin. Shut up.
I'm coming to you, Austin. I'm trying to get around the horn here. Look, I was going around the horn. God. And Austin, with his roster construction, he knows it. But the way I look at it, I see this team, they're not going to fully revamp because they can't. But I don't think you're going to see the same roster that you saw put out there last year for this team. I think there's going to be a lot of changes. I think the bench is going to look mighty different this year. I don't think it's going to be Furkan season anymore or things like that. And we could get to that. And I think Doc knows how to put pieces in place to be successful. And that's why I'm excited. You guys know I was a Brett Brown lover. And I don't put all the failures on Brett Brown. I put quite a bit, but not all the failures on Brett Brown. But this was the kind of choice that would have kept me going with the Sixers and excited, rather than say, to be honest with you, like if Ty Lue would have been it, as long as it was not what's his name from Houston, D'Antoni, I was going to be happy. You know, I mean, but still, I would have been like, you know, Doc Rivers got me back rejuvenated. Thank God, because I'm going to fight every Philadelphia Eagle right now. So I'm rejuvenated for 76ers basketball until the draft, when they draft someone none of you guys say, and I'm sitting here like this, going, oh, it's just going to be another one of those.
It's going to be one of the guys that we just didn't scout. And we're like,
That would be fantastic.
like, who the hell is this guy?
We're like 40, 50 deep or something like some shit like
Alexa
that.
Boguchevich or whatever it is. That one guy.
I'll just be happy to make a draft pick. So,
Rob, what was your grade for Doc Rivers?
I mean, I when you look at what was out there, and you know the fact that, listen, he came available, they targeted him, they went and got him. I don't give this organization a lot of credit. I'm going to give him an A- on this one, because they targeted a guy and they went out and got him, and he's got some pedigree to him.
All right, before we get on to bring him back or let him go, free agency with Sixers free agents, let's go to the comments. NBA burner account says Dave Yeager's going to have a significant impact, I think. Hope so.
I agree. I think people look at his defensive impact in Memphis. I go to his time in Sacramento.
Yeah.
And what he turned De'Aaron Fox into.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of similarity between De'Aaron Fox and Ben Simmons. And I think that he's going to bring out some very interesting elements of Ben Simmons' game that's going to play out really well for the Sixers.
Yep. He also says, I think Doc is going to develop a stronger two-man game with Ben and Joel. Like you look at DeAndre Jordan and how he was implemented in Lob City. That was all about rolling to the basket and getting touches around the basket. So we all want that for Joel Embiid. Big 3Cs were in a different era of basketball. All right. Yeah, but I also, you say DeAndre Fox, D'Anthony Fox. Jesus. I'm
De'Aaron Fox.
De'Aaron Fox. Jeez.
You were so close.
I also think of Rajon Rondo and Ben Simmons and how that could possibly be a clues to what we're going to see with the Philadelphia 76ers. Callie _Dream11 says, Langy season.
Still here.
And then last comment before we move on is, will we see point center Ben? Lead us off, Tiago. Any thoughts on that one?
Will we see point center Ben under Doc Rivers?
Yep.
I don't think so. So one of the things that concerns me about Doc Rivers is we talk a lot about pace, right? So his pace is moderately to high-paced offense, but that does not necessarily translate into transition opportunities. So if you look at the Clippers' transition as a whole, we're at the bottom of the league. And that's one of the things that when I dove into Doc Rivers' Clippers teams, his usage of Blake Griffin, who's a similar type of player to Ben Simmons, was mostly in the half court and not so much in the open court. So that's one of the things that concerns me about that fit, is that how limiting is he going to be to Ben Simmons in the open court. So that's something to keep an eye on. Now, in the half court, he's heavily reliant on pick and roll ball handlers. And obviously, Ben Simmons is not that player. So the Sixers are going to have to figure out a way to integrate Simmons in the half court and also find who's going to be their ball handler in the pick and roll moving forward.
Is there a concern, Tiago, this question's for you. Is there a concern that you're going to see probably Joel Embiid set a lot of screens, roll to the basket, be active in Doc Rivers' system? Like, is there any concern that, like, he struggled in Brett Brown's system with conditioning? In a Doc Rivers system, he's actually going to have to be more conditioned, in better shape. Is that a legit concern? Any random thoughts about that?
I mean, he's going to have to own that element of his game. Like setting screens, rolling to the basket is part of what a big man does in the NBA today. I mean, look at Anthony Davis in the NBA Finals. He was doing everything. He was doing everything necessary to win the championship. And I'm not saying Joel does not want to do that. I think Joel's committed to winning. But commitment to winning is more than just taking mid-range jump shots and posting up. Yep. And I think he have to own that. If he wants to be a beast in Doc Rivers' offense, he's going to have to set screens, roll to the basket, and be part of that offense. So, I'm not concerned because I do think that Joel is going to fit in, but he has to own that piece of his game.
Yep. And we saw in the fourth quarter, he just lost his legs. He would camp out in the perimeter. Any final thoughts on that, Rob? I think Austin's eating his hibachi chicken and shrimp down there.
Nailed it.
Was that chicken and shrimp? I don't know if I nailed that or what, but it looked pretty damn close.
Right.
It's definitely shrimp.
I'll just say this: that I think Doc is such an intelligent basketball mind. Listen, one of the things that drove me nuts about Brett Brown was he had a system and he tried to make everybody fit into that. Like there was no adjustments to his system. I think Doc is a smart enough basketball mind where he sees what he has. He knows that he can't run the exact thing he ran in LA, the exact thing he ran in Boston. I think that's why you're seeing him not bring his old assistants, right? Everybody thought Sam Cassell. Well, you're hearing all these names. Maybe he's trying to just get a little taste of everything so that they can form what's best to fit Ben and Joel and Tobias for that matter. Because listen, those three guys are going to be here.
Yep.
I don't know about anybody else. Those three guys are going to be here. And I think he wants to build around them and put the correct pieces around them. I know that they're saying he's not having anything to do with the man. He's working collaboratively with Elton Brand to put together the roster they need to win around those guys. So I'm gonna err on the side of Doc is such a smart basketball man that he will adjust to make Ben feel more integrated, even if it's not necessarily a transition type of offense.
All right. Let's move on to Sixers free agents, and now we're gonna play bring them back or let him go. So let's lead off with Alec Burks. This guy's 29 years old. He played 28 games with the Sixers, averaging 12.2 points in 20 minutes per game. He shot 41.5% from three on 4.3 attempts per game. Bring him back or let him go. Rob, what's your quick thoughts?
Well, to start, we can't even talk about free agency unless they can unload some of the money that they have tied up in some of these guys, the Al Horfords and things of that nature. I like Alec Burks off the bench. I think he's that microwave off the bench. He's not terribly consistent. He's going to have these moments where he's just missing everything, but you saw a couple times in the bubble that he just came in and made a difference in the basketball game. I would love for them to bring Alec Burks back. The problem is they don't have a lot of money. What's he going to get on the open market? Yeah. Is he really going to be willing to come back to this team on a discount? I don't think he has that much of a tie to Philadelphia. I'd like to see him bring him back. I think it's more likely that he goes, though, however.
All right. What about you, Tiago?
Yeah, I think Rob touched on it. The Sixers should not be in the business of bringing in Alec Burks in a long-term deal in any type of fashion. And I think that if you test the free agent market, comes back, and then get him on a vet minimum, okay, that's a different story. But, his fit with this team as a ball stopper and a guy who plays suboptimal defense, I don't see it. So, again, test the market, see what's out there. If there's nothing out there and it can bring him back in a minimum, fine. But please, no to Alec Burks. Sorry.
Coco Smiles joins us tonight. Thanks for joining, Coco. He says Alec Burks didn't want to come to Philly. He was sad to leave Golden State. I think I heard a little.
Yeah,
it's California.
It's California. You have Steph Curry on your team.
Austin, any thoughts on Alec Burks? Bring him back. Let him go.
So I think like a lot of teams are going to be looking at like 1-year deals for their guys because the market's very down and because of like the COVID and whatnot. So I think the spending market's going to be reduced. So I think there is a chance you bring him back on like a 1-year deal, but I think he's going to want probably like a little bit above the mid-level exception value. But I mean, I think if you can get like him to say like, okay, I buy into Doc Rivers winning 5 of the last 6 Man of the Year awards, I could see that. And maybe that's attractive to him. Maybe his agent says, take a 1-year deal, Philly, get your value back up, buy into that role, and then take a longer-term deal for higher AAV elsewhere the following offseason. But I think there is a chance, especially in this market, for sure.
All right, let's move on to Glenn Robinson III, 26 years old, played 14 games, starting 4 for the Sixers, 7.7 points on average in 19 minutes per game, 33% from 3. Bring him back or let him go, Rob.
I'm a child when it comes to being a fan, and he pissed me off in his first 2-week year when he decided to bitch and complain. I don't know what my role is. How about just shut up and play basketball? So just for that alone, for that alone, I'm going total child fandom here and saying, get him the hell out. I don't want any negativity around my new Sixers.
Started to use him a lot as a cutter. And I think that, again, for the vet minimum, he's a good fit. He's a guy who plays decent defense. He can alleviate some of the defensive load from Ben and from Matisse and Joel. So I like the fit. I think that I don't think there's going to be a market for him. So I think it's worth taking a shot on him. But again, for very little money.
Austin.
No, he missed his first 14 threes of his Sixers tenure and then complained about not knowing what his role was. Absolutely not. I don't think he wants to be back here either.
All right. There's Glenn Robinson, the third. Let's roll on to Raul Neto, 28 years old, 54 games, averaged 5 points in 12 minutes per game. Bring him back, let him go. Rob.
Well, if it's between him and Nate Gary, I'm picking out. I'm going to put that out there. But with that said, I listen. I know that Brett Brown just loved having that settle it down point guard to come in the game. And look, I didn't hate Raul Neto as much as many of Sixers Nation did because I did see the positives to him. But I want a little bit more from my bench this year. I don't want that much of a liability at times. And, listen, once again, the Sixers are going to be playing with a tight cap. So it might have to be an Raul Neto that is here. But if I have my choice, I'm going to go in a different direction this year.
Thiago.
Yeah, I got to do my fellow countryman dirty here. I got to say no. I'm sorry. I just don't see with Neto. I mean, props to Brazil and all that, but this draft is loaded with young point guards. Loaded with young point guards, and I don't need Neto on the bench taking up playing time from any of those guys. So no to Neto.
We're gonna move on to the NBA draft at the end of this pod, and there are several guys that can pull up and hit a three, especially in transition. Go ahead, Krell.
I think anything's possible in the down market. I think he's cheap enough on a 1-year deal. You could probably bring him back. I don't know if Doc wants him back, but I think it's feasible.
All right. So
I just love the pop in and out of all. So much for this show for me.
Oh man, I love a good hibachi, man. That's underrated. Every time I go to get hibachi, I'm like, why don't I do this all the freaking time? I know. Every time, I love it. All right, last one. We got bring them back.
Guys, my cousin wants you to say hi. It's her birthday.
Happy birthday! Happy birthday! All right.
It's been a while.
We have derailed.
Whatever.
This,
right. I mean, it's pretty much this is a Sixers podcast.
2020, baby. 2020.
All right, let's move on. Lastly, to Kyle O'Quinn, 30 years old, 30 games with the Sixers last year. Bring him back. Let him go, Rob.
Let him go. I don't really have much to say about Kyle O'Quinn. Once again, I need someone on the bench in that role to be better than the older Kyle O'Quinn. Affording is another thing, but I want someone better. No to Kyle O'Quinn for me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Thiago?
No, all the way. And I think that what we're going to see is that with Norvel Pell, there's going to be some interesting minutes with him, with Doc Rivers. Doc loves that big rim roller, protects the rim. I think we're actually going to see a lot of Norvel Pell this year. So, yeah, Kyle Quinn, get out.
Dude, you're killing me, bro. You're killing me. It's your my guy.
Yeah,
he's like the Greg Ward of the Sixers for me, man. That is my heart.
He's better than Greg Ward, man. I like Greg Ward, but he's better.
Norvel Powell deserves minutes. Austin, any thoughts on Kyle O'Quinn?
I definitely think that
what is going on back there?
Kyle Quinn is not coming back, especially with the emergence of Norvel Pell. That's for sure.
All right. Anyway,
whatever.
Let's go on to the comments here. We got a lot of comments. I'm going to just really kind of go through these fast. I think Horford is a must trade. Tobias is close to a must trade. Stay tuned, dude. Thanks for joining. We're going to hit that very, very soon. Alec Burks didn't want to come. Already did that. Horford ain't going to be traded unless the Sixers trade the OKC pick. We're going to get into that. The Sixers need pick and roll scores. That is 100% fact. That is a major area of need. He says, use Tobias, Horford, and Jay Rich to bring in Chris Paul and Buddy Hield. Again, we're going to be getting into trades pretty much right after our next segment here. CP3 contract. I don't know if it's worth putting CP3 along Ben Simmons. We're going to talk about that. You guys are doing great. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We're just going to, for the sake of time, we're already 25 minutes in. Let's move on to on the roster, off the roster in 2020, 2021. Let's lead off with Josh Richardson. It's beyond obvious that Jay Rich's fit with the current core did not work last season. He's too hesitant to shoot. He's not a playmaker. He doesn't move the ball. He can't run pick and roll. He can't create for his teammates. I was honestly shocked that this guy's defense was actually vastly overrated for me as well. This is a guy who was once team all defense with Miami, and it just was honestly disappointing. This guy is off the roster for me. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I'm gonna vote to off the roster. I would be intrigued to see him with a different coach, a different style of play. Obviously, him and Brett Brown's style did not mesh the way that we had hoped for it to mesh. But I also think a lot of that was the guys around them. I don't think he plays the style that those guys needed to play. If it was up to me, look, he got another year, 10 million, 11 million, whatever it is. I would look to move him, see what you could get. Maybe he's got to go as part of a package. If I'm sure a name we're going to get to being Al Horford. I would like to see Josh Richardson off the roster because guess what? Even if he came out and played well this year, you're not going to be able to sign him next year anyway. So, let's get something for him now while we still can. Let's not wait.
Get him out. What about you, Tiago?
Yeah, I was looking around to see where we could send Josh Richardson to as fast as possible. And the one team that really stood out for me was Brooklyn. I love the fit in Brooklyn. I think he's perfect for that core of KD and Kyrie, where he doesn't have to do a lot, plays defense, takes an open shot here and there. And if you look at Brooklyn's roster, there's a guy there called Spencer Dinwiddie.
He is.
Who is in his last year of his deal. It works 1-for-1. Bring in Spencer for a year, have him run point guard, have him shoot off the ball. And I think that is a perfect match between both Philadelphia and Brooklyn. So, yeah, I'd pack his bags tomorrow for Brooklyn. No questions asked.
We're going to talk about Spencer Dinwiddie. I didn't know he averaged over 6 assists a game for the Nets. That was a shocking stat for me. What about you, Rob?
I love Spencer Dinwiddie. If that deal is available, yeah, you do it as quickly as humanly possible. Spencer Dinwiddie, not only do I just like the player, the guy just kills the Sixers.
Every time.
He absolutely murders the Sixers.
Yeah. If you don't know who Spencer Dinwiddie is, you're officially living under a rock as a Sixers fan.
I would love, Dinwiddie fits the role here that I think you wanted Josh Richardson to do, but I think Dinwiddie would be a much better fit with this court.
I fully agree. Austin, any thoughts on Jay Rich? Is he on the roster or off the roster?
I think he probably won't be back. I think it works well for his salary. And I should have never done this at dinner, but here we are. I will say that I think under the right structure and culture, he could be a good fit. Maybe package him to New Orleans. Maybe get back JJ Redick.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to let's go on to Tobias. Let's go on to Tobias Harris. First up, I don't know if any one of you guys saw, but Bleacher Report had an article a few days ago that ranked him the second most overpaid player in the league. I thought Tobias Harris had a fairly solid season last year, almost 20 points, almost 7 rebounds per game. But I think any conversation about Tobias begins and ends with his struggles in the playoffs. 2 for 15 from 3 during the playoffs, 38.3% from the floor during that round 1 sweep. So, but with Doc Rivers, man, hopefully this guy becomes that 20 plus per game, 43.4% shooter from 3 that he was with the LA Clippers. I am absolutely in favor of keeping Tobias on the roster, but if the right trade comes along and there's a better fit or part of another package, absolutely, he's definitely on the table. What about you, Rob?
Listen, first of all, one of the major issues that, some of these national writers and obviously the fans, they just look at the amount of money a guy's getting, and they don't look at the broad spectrum of the NBA. And Tobias was going to get that money anywhere. Yeah. That's what he was going to get paid. That was market value for Tobias Harris. The Sixers were not going to get Jimmy back. They gave Tobias the contract. So that's
Rob, I will actually dispute that. He was not going to get the same value anywhere. I think it was about 140, 150 elsewhere.
Okay. But let me put it to you this way. People would still say he's overpaid for the production he gave you. But that's what I mean by that is that's NBA market value, right? Secondly, Doc Rivers is here. Tobias' best years of his career came under Doc Rivers. So anyone that thinks Tobias is going anywhere, he ain't going nowhere. Tobias is here. They are not. First of all, this organization, very much like some of the other ones in the city, are not going to admit 2 wrongdoings in one offseason. Okay? They're not going to admit it. And they're not, if there's one of the 2 wrongdoings that I'm talking about, they're going to trade, it ain't going to be Tobias. It's going to be a guy that truly does not fit. It will not be Tobias Harris. He will be on this roster opening day. I think it's a guarantee.
Thiago.
Yeah, Tobias is going to stay here. I don't think there's much of discussion about that. And he should stay here. I think that people forget that first half of the year, he was almost an all-star. He was a borderline all-star. Now, he was terrible in the postseason. There's no questions about that. But a lot of it falls on the fact that Ben Simmons wasn't around. And Ben Simmons is a huge shot creator for Tobias Harris. So he's going to stay here. And I think he's going to be fine clearing the Doc. I will say this, that for folks who think there's a magic bullet between Doc and Tobias, there really isn't. Tobias just shot the ball better in LA. There's no secret potion that Doc is going to unearth on Tobias. I think that he just shot the ball better. And I think if he gets back to that point, we're going to see a much more productive Tobias, obviously. But I don't think that Doc is going to use Tobias any different than how Brett used him. Brett tried to use him some pick and roll looks, try to move him off the catch as a cutter. And I think those things are going to be there with Doc. I do think that he's going to benefit from playing power forward and not small forward. And I think that that's where we're going to see a little bit more of a productive Tobias next season.
Austin, you there, buddy?
He's gone.
So I don't think there's any kind of trade market for Tobias, even though I think they would like to get off the contract if they could. But I think he should have a better season, especially with like a more pick and roll heavy offense. I think it's like a contract that you're stranded with, but I don't think it's like an Andrew Wiggins situation where it's like you're just like I'll pay you not to play, essentially.
Awesome. Wow, I just want to say thank you to all of our comments in the comment section. You guys are rolling. Love the action happening in the comments. But let's roll on to Al Horford, your guy, Rob. Horford was 6th in scoring on the team, averaging 11.9 points in 30.2 minutes per game. He shot 45% from the floor, 35% from 3, and he had a mediocre true shooting percentage of 53.6%. Obviously, that's not good enough when you factor in a 4-year, $109 million contract. So, Rob, staying or going, Al Horford?
I think we all bought into the Al Horford fit almost as like a, God, we hope this works now that Jimmy Butler's not here. I know some people maybe in this meeting with us don't feel the same about Jimmy. But I know like that. I feel like for me, I bought into that because I needed to feel good about something once Jimmy Butler walked. It didn't work, guys. It didn't work. There was no spacing when him and Embiid and Simmons were out there. I don't see how it would work. Austin has gotten me super excited that Al Horford is going to get traded. So if he doesn't, Austin, I'm coming after your ass because you're the one who have made me believe for like the last 2 months that Al Horford's as good as gone.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time I delivered coal on Christmas. So,
should we go Austin? How was your shrimp, by the way?
excellent. My cousins were all in the background. They're like yelling. They're like doing a live show on YouTube, and they're like, "I want to be in it," and I'm like, "No." And then they ended up in it anyway. My mom was calling me back to the table, so I couldn't not sit there. So I apologize. It was not.
Now you're in the bathroom or something.
Moment.
What is your worry?
All right, Thiago. Horford staying, Horford going.
Do I think Horford's staying? I think Horford's gone. Now, do I think that he should be gone? I'm on the fence about it. And the reason why I say that is because I think that the Sixers are going to make a big mistake in overpaying for someone else. I do think that Al Horford has value. And my fear is that the Sixers are going to attach Horford, Matisse, and a pick.
Could this guy's name potentially be Buddy?
Yeah, Buddy Hield, who is not even close to the player Al Horford is from value to value standpoint. So if there's a deal to be made with Al Horford, yes, you make the deal, but I'd be worried about overpaying just to get out of his money, because that is what the Sixers have done in the last 2 years. They've overpaid for guys, made bad deals, burned through their list of assets. So I just be worried about that. And I just want to touch one more thing on Al Horford. Again, the fit with Embiid is terrible. There's no question about that. But the Lakers won a championship with a center, a traditional power forward, and a point forward in LeBron James. Now, I'm not comparing Ben Simmons to LeBron James. I'm not comparing Embiid to Anthony Davis. But the format to win is similar to what the Sixers wanted to get done with Embiid, Horford, and Ben. So I would not completely rule out the fact that these guys can work together, but it's obviously a lot has to change for it to happen, for sure.
Yeah, the floor was obviously clogged when Al Horford and Joel Embiid when Embiid and Horford shared the court. The Sixers were outscored 3.9 points per 100 possessions. On the other end, when Horford was on with Simmons and no Embiid, they were a plus 5.9 net rating. So obviously this offseason has to be about building around Ben and Joel on the court at the same time. He's gone. Al Horford's gone. Any take on that, Austin?
Yeah, I think you're going to have to attach assets to get off of him. But I do ultimately think that Al Horford will be gone. I just think that the risk that you're running if you bring him, if you say, okay, let's give him another year, see if he can make it work under Doc. I think ultimately the risk you're running into there is what if he's just as bad, if not worse? Then on the open market, that means, okay, so you want us to take back an asset that's wildly overpaid, going to eat up a ton of our cap, and not really have any real value. I want 3 assets in return. And then what happens is you have a chance to somewhere to kind of pull the wool over the eyes in a sense of, hey, it was a bad fit. He was hurt. He had a couple of nagging injuries, not the right system for him. We realized that it wasn't a good fit. Let's work something out here. Let's give you a pick and one of Shake or one of Matisse, whatever, and you have a chance to pull that off. I think the longer you wait, you run a bigger risk that's just money you're stuck on no matter what.
All right, let's roll on to Shake Milton. There really wasn't much optimism last season, but if you're going to look for it on this Sixers roster, Shake Milton has to be among the top of the list. Shake Milton surged 17.9 points during those final 8 games of the regular season when Ben Simmons was injured, was really, truly one of the bright spots of the season. Milton followed it up with a pretty decent showing in the playoffs, averaging 14.5 points. 47.7% from the field, 40% from 3. Is he staying? Is he going? Rob?
I'm totally fine with Shake staying on this roster. I'm not totally fine if Shake's a starter, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I like Shake off the bench. I think that's what he is in the NBA. I think he could be a really solid bench piece for you. But he's not a starting point guard. And I know that he kind of had to be injuries and they were just trying things. But I know Doc loves him because he lit Doc's ass up last year.
Yeah, you're right.
And Doc specifically mentioned Shake Milton during his, opening press conference. So I do believe Shake's back, and I do believe he fits into a really nice role off the bench for the Sixers.
I'll never forget that game, when we were in the first half, and one of the commentators there had no idea who Shake Milton was. It was the most epic, one of the best games of the year by far.
It was definitely Mark Jackson. He definitely was like, "Mama, there goes that man." He was 5 minutes ago.
Thiago, going Shake Milton.
I agree. I mean, he's exactly what you want on this team. A cheap contract, come off the bench, do multiple things for you. Definitely keep him.
I mean, you remember that contract was not handled that well on social media. People were pretty up in arms about Shake Milton, especially after the summer league.
Yeah, the summer league was what are we doing? This guy was incredible. What's going on?
What about you, Austin?
I would not gamble on either of Milton or Thybulle being back. I just don't know. I think you have to consider anything in a scenario where they got to trade Horford. And the fact that you make these terrible decisions in the past, it makes it obvious that you have to give up assets to get off of it.
Yep. All right, let's go. I think Shake is a shooting guard, not a point guard. His playmaking is not that good, though. I think he's a pretty good playmaker. I like the ability to get to the basket, move off ball. I think he's just an overall great fit with Ben. I think he stays. Let's move on to Matisse Thybulle. This guy shot 35% the first couple months of the season, and really just hit that rookie wall and just tailed off 25.3% from three during the final few months of the regular season. I just love the duo of Thybulle and Ben Simmons, one of my favorite pairings in just as a Sixers fan. I might be in the minority here. I want Thybulle back. The Sixers team is all about deflections, blocks, getting points in transition. That is Matisse. I'm not ready to move him off. I don't want to get it, but if he's part of a deal that brings in a better player, absolutely. But I love Matisse. Obviously, everyone here knows that. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I love Matisse too. I don't want to see Matisse go, but Austin and Tiago have both said it. If you're looking to move some of these bigger contracts, you're going to have to give up an asset somewhere. So what's that asset going to be? Is it going to be the 21st pick? Is it going to be Matisse? Is it going to be a Shake Milton? You don't have a ton of assets to give. So something has to go. Someone's going to have to go. I would hate it to be Matisse because, I'm tired of the Sixers getting these late first round, early second round guys that seem like they could create a niche, and then they get rid of them, such as a Landry Shamet, stuff like that. And then you're sitting there going, there's another young guy on a manageable contract that we got rid of. Is it really going to, help them out? I want Matisse here. I really do.
Do you mean like Sixto Sanchez?
We're not talking about JT tonight.
As Austin said, somebody's going to have to go. And my guess is most teams that are willing to take an Al Horford contract are going to say, we're only doing this if you include a Matisse Thybulle. Yep. And then it becomes like you said, weighing, is it worth it for a better, a specific player?
Tiago.
That's my fear right there, because if Matisse is the guy between you and Oladipo, that's one thing. I'll gladly pack Matisse's bag tomorrow to Indiana and be like, goodbye.
Yep.
But if Matisse is what's going to get you like Buddy Hield, then it's a different discussion for me. And I don't want to part ways with Matisse at that point. I do think that Matisse is like a three-pointer away from being like a starter in this league. And I think there's tremendous value in that. And for the Sixers to attach him, Horford, a pick, to get a guy like Buddy Hield, I don't like it, and I don't think they should go that route. But I do think they're going to explore trading him, and I would not be surprised if he's not here to start the season.
What about you, Austin? You there, buddy?
Is it Thybulle?
Yeah, we're talking about Matisse. On or off the roster?
I'm very on target with it. So I would say I don't know, because again, I think you have to, whatever assets someone wants for Horford, you have to give up. And I think people were like romanticized him. I would say he probably is not as good as people make him out to be, and he's definitely replaceable. So I think the jury's out.
All right, let's do this question before our next one. Do you think the Sixers will keep or trade the 21st pick? We're going to get into that very soon during our draft segment. Rob, yes or no? Keep.
I think they're going to do everything in their power to keep this pick. I think they know they need some cheap young guys to fill out a bench role and maybe develop into a starter. I think if they're moving Horford, they're going to maybe look to move they got multiple second-round picks and another asset. I hope they keep it, man. They need to draft somebody. And like I've been following what you guys have been saying about the draft. There are players to be had at that pick who can help them next year. Not one of these guys that it's going to take time, that could come in and be an asset to them next year.
We're going to get into that. But like you said, Rob, I'm not a fan of the top of this NBA draft. But in that Sixers range around 21, there are some really intriguing fits. What about you, Tiago?
I agree. I think that they should keep the pick. Would I think they will keep the pick? No. I think they're going to trade the pick. But we see guys like Tyler Hero. I mean, there's a guy called Terrell Terry. He's like the mold of a Tyler Hero type shooter who may be there at 21. There's a Cole Anthony who is, again, a great young prospect. So, yes, they should keep the pick, but, it's the Sixers. So I don't think they will.
Let's roll on to Furkan Korkmaz. Like, considering where this guy came from, it's crazy to think where the Sixers would be. Who's waving?
I'm going to start waving at Furkan Korkmaz. As Grant walks down the street.
Dude, this guy had some of the best moments of last season, man. You had the buzzer beater.
He also stepped on the sideline before getting a shot off 57 times, I feel like. How many different times does this guy not realize you can't score out of bounds?
Got like 14 size feet. It's like, this is huge.
I have not seen that in high school basketball that much, and those kids are even dumber.
Man, given his contract, Furkan's coming back. I know he sucked during, his defense sucks and he's streaky as hell. But man, he showed me that I was dead wrong on this guy. I actually was out on him this season, brought me in. What about you, Tiago?
I think they're going to guarantee his whatever. I think it's like 1.5, 1.7 million. So they'll guarantee him.
Yeah.
But he's going to be a guy who I don't think is going to play a lot. And then maybe flip at the deadline for something else, packaging him part of a deal. So he'll be back, but I don't think he's going to play much.
Yeah, I kind of, I'm saying bye-bye, but I think what Tiago said is exactly right. He's going to be a guy that's the healthy scratch a lot, I think. Not in uniform, will be in the suit on the bench. And look, he had some great moments. He performed way better than I expected him to this year. But once again, going forward, that's not the guy I want coming off the bench. There are better players that do more things that I would like coming off the bench. I mean, I just don't – I think he's going to be a guy that if there's some injuries, he'll get in, might have a few good games to get Chris all excited again, and then he'll be back into the suit jacket once the injury's over.
I always favor guys like Korkmaz. I always favor guys like Matisse over guys like Furkan, because if you can defend off the bench, like Glenn Robinson III, I 100% would rather go that route than Furkan Korkmaz. That guy's that can really defend. Mike Scott, Rob.
Yeah, it's done. I mean, you saw he was a shell of himself this year.
You guys just skipped me.
Goodness.
We don't know if you're here, if you're not here, Austin. Nobody knows where the hell you are.
I am very much so right here.
Before I get Furkan, Austin, what do you got?
He will be here. He will definitely be here.
Yeah. The contract is
I'm glad I added value to that conversation.
That was valuable as Furkan's contract to the 76ers next year.
Mike Scott back, or is he?
No, I think the Mike Scott high fizzled out pretty quickly, and I just don't see a role for him on this team with this group of guys at this point.
That guy sucks. What about you, Tiago?
Oh, man. You just lost like 1,000 followers. He's got to go, man. He was, oh my god!
He hit ball threes for one season for me.
Yeah, no, he was a shell of himself. You can't have that in a team that's trying to win a championship. Sorry.
What about you, Austin? You there, buddy?
I'm right here. I'm moving away from my family because they're driving me nuts.
Mike
Scott, I have a very strong suspicion that they'll trade him to a Detroit, something like that, and then they'll attach a second round pick to make it worth the while. But I think they really would like to get off that $4.9 million that he's owed.
Yep. All right, let's talk about Zhaire Smith. Me personally, unfortunately, package him in a trade unless he shows drastic improvement during the preseason, during training camp. This guy just doesn't fit their timeline. I'm just, as a huge Zhaire Smith fan, I'm just done waiting. Rob.
Yeah, I just wish that there was more value for him where he could be one of these big assets you give with a Horford, but there's not. Nobody knows anything about him. You haven't seen him. You're friggin' health and you're almost killed the guy in his rookie year. So we don't really know enough about him, but I'm done with the waiting game with him. Listen, it's one of those moves, Brett Brown. I understand why he made it, but at the same time, I sit here and go, I would have liked to see what Mikal Bridges would have brought to the table.
All right. What about you, Tiago?
Yeah, Zaire's one of those guys that he'll end up in Toronto, and then 2 years from now, you're like, holy crap! I didn't know Zhaire Smith was that good. I think that the money is going to get in the way, and I think they're going to look to move him. I think they have a $4 million club option next season and a $6 million qualifying option. So he just hasn't done anything to be able to earn that money, and they're going to probably use him as an asset to try to get out of some contracts. Unfortunately, because I'm still big on Zhaire Smith. The little time that he's played with the Sixers, he's shown a lot defensively, but like you said, the timeline just does not fit this team.
Austin.
So I think the writing's been on the wall for Zhaire for years now. I mean, I think like people close to him I have even think that he's gone. So I mean, I think it's an unfortunate scenario, but I think that there is some sort of value in the idea of the unknown with him. Like
Right.
I think that there's a team out there that would be excited or maybe intrigued by the prospect of, hey, this guy's barely played in the NBA, kind of been like not hidden but sort of stored down in the G League. What can we turn him into? Maybe a team like a San Antonio finds value in him. Maybe a team that's about is in the middle of a rebuild or about to rebuild, like a Charlotte, finds value in him. I think I don't think he's going to be like the asset that pushes you over the top in any kind of trade discussion, but I think that he's the kind of guy that you can sort of attach in terms of making like efficient roster moves and clearing money. That he's the kind of guy that's going to be like, okay, yeah, we'll take him.
All right. Now we get to the fun part. So now we're going to talk about Sixers trade rumors. We're going to do buy or sell. I got a list of the top targets for the Philadelphia 76ers. Let's start off with Buddy Hield. I think the core of this trade proposal is probably Horford for Buddy Hield. Horford's going to make $27.5 million next season. Hield's going to make roughly $24.5 million. On paper, it's a no-brainer. But I'm with you, Tiago. He's 8 years younger. Like, it looks like a great trade. On the other hand, like, this guy started in 44 of 72 games last season. He clashed publicly with the Kings front office. Newsflash, the Sixers front office is a fucking mess. So it's not getting any better from the Sacramento Kings. This guy posted the lowest field goal and three-point percentages since his rookie season. Would I be excited to see Buddy Hield as a Sixer next year? Yes, absolutely. But like you said, Tiago, I'm not emptying the clip to this guy. I'm not paying top dollar to bring in Buddy Hield. What about you, Rob?
It's so hard for me because I love what the idea of a Buddy Hield could bring to this offense. I understand that he may not be as good of a shooter as a lot of people think, but it was only a few years ago that I watched Buddy Hield kind of take the country by storm as a kid at Oklahoma. And I know the NBA and college are two different games. I get that. I'm curious what it would take to give him up. I would have an issue with the idea of a Matisse having to go. And I understand what Tiago's saying. I understand what you're saying. But I am in such a desperation for guys that can shoot the basketball that I don't know how – and to get rid of Al Horford. So, like, when those two things come together for me, I'm overlooking everything else. And I'm also saying, look, I know the Sixers front office is in a bad way, but players at least respect Elton Brand. No one respects – anyone in the Sacramento Kings organization ever. So,
Brett is gone, so who knows?
I know a lot of people said Buddy and Jaeger had issues. I think different scenario with it being Jaeger's an assistant coach here. I'm all in on Buddy Hield. I am. I'm all in.
Tiago.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Buddy guy. Do I think Buddy makes the Sixers better? Absolutely. You're talking about adding a guy who shoots 45% on high volume three-pointers. Absolutely. That makes an immediate impact on this team. He makes him better right away. But my struggles goes back to, again, is you have limited assets, you have limited playing cards to work with, and you're basically burning all of them on a player who plays suboptimal defense, who's older, who doesn't really have another step to his game. So you're really adding pretty much another shooter to your offense. And I do think that they can find that value in the draft. You can find similar value in free agency. So I'm not as high on Buddy. I know that my man Austin disagrees because he did a phenomenal piece on Buddy.
I gotta tell you, Buddy Hield, the real deal.
Sounds like one of those
hashtag analysis.
Yeah. So I'll defer to him, but I'm just not a Buddy guy. I'm just not a Buddy guy. Sorry.
Austin, buy, sell Buddy Hield.
I was, and I think I still am to some extent, but I think it's going to take a whole lot of maneuvering to get it done. I just think that Sacramento views him as a piece for the long term, and I just, with the recent changes they've made, they've definitely reshaped a lot of the things that they did in the past that he did not like, so it'll be interesting to see that for sure.
All right, let's roll on to Chris Paul. Bleacher Report came up with a trade scenario that kind of got the social media in a frenzy. Chris Paul to Philadelphia in exchange for Horford, Matisse, Zhaire, and a 2022 top 10 protected pick. Chris Paul's due to make $41 million this upcoming season and $44 million the following season. CP3 was pretty good this year, but you can't ignore the injury history. You can't ignore the age. I'm more out on CP3 than in. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I'm more out if that's what you got to give up for an aging, injury-ridden guy. Be honest with you, it would not surprise me in the least bit if CP3 ends up with the Lakers in some sort of way.
Okay.
It makes it. It would have to be on a drastic pay cut. But the banana boat team, CP3 and LeBron and all those guys, they rode the banana boat together. They love each other. Wouldn't be surprised to see man up. Here, that doesn't really make sense to me because of the age and the injuries and what you would have to give up to even match salary. So I'm out on CP3 because of that reason.
Thiago.
I am out on anybody who's going to dribble the ball for 20 seconds and then pick the refs after that. So, listen, Chris Paul is a great player. Does he make the Sixers better? Like, absolutely. But you're talking about going from one old guy to another old guy, and I don't see it. I'm sorry. I mean, I just don't see it. So no on Chris Paul.
How do I do this? Yeah, Austin.
Also,
The Chris Paul trade?
Yeah. Buy or sell?
The Chris Paul idea? So
He doesn't even know where he's going.
I would say that the Chris Paul idea is
Let me put it in my
interesting, but here's the thing. I don't buy
Follow Bill.
I just don't buy into the idea that like it's gonna work with Ben
Follow Bill.
and Chris Paul.
Is that Bill?
It's
He's
I'm kind of
driving.
Uber right now, okay? Kind of Uber.
Wait, can we get that hashtag analysis from your friends, from your cousins? That's what we really want.
Mom, what do you think of Chris Paul?
Where are you going?
that's a sell.
We're going in a circle.
We're literally driving in a circle right now.
Wait a minute. Let me just do
I got. Listen. I think the Chris.
Oh my God!
I think the Chris Paul idea is. I just think you have to get Ben to buy into this
Where are we going?
off-ball
I'm
concept,
trying to.
and I think it's gonna be a lot like Jimmy Butler. Like, will he buy into that? I don't know that I buy that.
All right. Let's roll on to Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday's fit, man. I love Drew Holiday. His fit on the Sixers is legit. Obviously, because this guy can play both guard positions. He can defend 1 through 3. He can play effectively on and off the ball. He could play off Simmons or even be like the offensive initiator, be the secondary ball handler with Ben Simmons. Career 35% from 3. Had a great season last year. I love Drew Holiday. I would love to see him back with the Philadelphia 76ers. I am all in on Drew Holiday. What about you, Rob?
I would love to see Drew Holiday back here. I think Matt Cord as the PA announcer would love to be able to say Drew Holiday's name again. One of the best names he did, when he was here. Yeah. And listen, Drew Holiday left because it was the rebuild, right? I mean, that was why Drew Holiday. It was just he wasn't in the plans for what they were doing. In the beginning of the Sam Hinkie days, that was actually my honeymoon. I can remember being on my honeymoon in Punta Cana, finding out that trade went down. And being like, what the hell? Like, I don't even know what's happening here. But I think Drew Holiday fits this team perfectly. I just don't know if you can get him. I just don't know if you could get him. I don't know if they want to give him up, all that kind of stuff. I'll buy it, but I don't think I'd be very surprised if it happened.
That was the night I proposed to my wife. So we're kind of like in the sync there. I remember that trade vividly because that was the night I proposed. Anyway, Thiago.
I don't think New Orleans would want to move him. I think they want him around Zion. They want him around those young guys. Yeah. I think that, he's a good player. Obviously, he would be well welcomed here in Philadelphia. But no, I don't think it's going to happen.
All right. Krell.
He's afraid.
I think a lot of teams are going to want Drew Holiday. I think Brooklyn's in the mix for him. I think Denver's in the mix for Drew Holiday. So I just don't think that it's a feasible trade scenario because I think teams have better packages like Terrace, Levert, or even like somebody else like I think Michael Porter's off the table. But I think that it's unlikely. I think other teams are going to have better packages.
All right, let's roll on to Victor Oladipo. This guy spent pretty much all of last season battling his way with injury. So this guy's slated to become a free agent next summer. But this guy is a big-time slasher. He's a big-time closer. He can create on the perimeter. He's got a bit of that clutch gene. He's also a really good defender. I mean, I would love to bring in Victor Oladipo. I still have like nightmares of him beating my Temple Owls in the tournament long time ago. We had them dead to rights, and 2 minutes later, Oladipo goes off and beat Temple. What about you, Rob? In buy or sell on Victor Oladipo?
In. You're not if you don't want Victor Oladipo here, you obviously just don't really care about the Sixers. Like, I mean, it's Victor Oladipo. I understand there's an injury concern. I understand he is not a spring chicken anymore, but it's Victor Oladipo. He does everything you want to do, and you want to talk about that perfect fit around the Joel Embiid, around the Ben Simmons. You know, Victor Oladipo would be a prime guy to have here. Once again, though, I just don't see how the Sixers get this done. There's going to be a market for this guy, and a lot of other teams are going to be able to give a lot of better packages to Indiana for it. But my God, if Indiana wanted to take a couple of these guys from us, by all means, please do it. Victor Oladipo would have me psyched for NBA basketball.
Well said. Thiago.
Yeah, he would be one of those guys I would definitely trade Matisse and the 21st pick, the whole crew. I think that, the injury, it's a real thing, but if he's anything close to the player that it was there 2 years ago, the Sixers are gaining a bona fide star in Victor Oladipo. So
can they afford him, though? Can they afford him if he's like as good as he was?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I think that if you can make the trade, you make the trade and you figure things out later. I think if your goal is to win a championship, right, that's what Doc has preached. That's what the franchise is preaching. You make it work, and then you figure it out when the bill comes. So,
yeah, I fully agree. All in. Austin, buy or sell Victor Oladipo to the Sixers? We don't have Austin right now.
He's afraid to unmute. He's got to be afraid to unmute at this point.
All right. Let's go on to Spencer Dinwiddie. We already touched a little bit on it, but if you're
wait. What was the question? What was the question? Sorry, I was on the highway. It's breaking up.
All right, just be careful.
What's the question?
Buy or sell
Oladipo. So with Oladipo, I don't think you have the assets for him, and I think there's other teams out there that would have interest. I think a lot of it is a concern of what does he expect out of his next contract. I think he thinks he's worth a max. I don't get the vibe that teams around the NBA think he's worth a max, so I think that can sort of alter that market. I think a team like the Lakers might make a push. They could make a push. Maybe you trade up like Kuzma, a couple other pieces, or like a team like the Mavericks. Maybe you could package something there. I think that there's a market for him elsewhere, but I think a lot of the concern is like is he a 1 year rental or is he a long-term piece? And I think there's a lot of sort of confusion with his own camp and with the camp of the Pacers as to how much he's worth.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Spencer Dinwiddie. This guy's 27. I think there's good plus and minus with this guy. He's increased his scoring every year. And eventually he rose up to 20 points per game last season. However, he only shot 30% from three last year, 33% from three the season before that. On the other end, like this guy just has that ability to score in isolation, the ability to score in the pick and roll, the ability to score in catch and shoot. Like as a scorer, like he's a very clear fit. I am all in on Spencer Dinwiddie. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I'm all in. I think that this is the type of guy I want on this team. He's just that gritty, hardworking guy. He's always looking to improve his game. He fits the mold of a role player, which is what the Sixers need, right? They need these better role players. One of the big things that hurt them last year was they didn't have these guys that were the bona fide role players you needed around guys with talent such as Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. I think Dinwiddie fits here great. I would love if you could move a Josh Richardson to get a Spencer Dinwiddie, I mean, my God, that would be unbelievable. And maybe the Nets value a Josh Richardson more so that it would actually work out. I don't know. But if they found a way to get Spencer Dinwiddie, I think that would be a major, major plus for the Sixers.
Are we talking a straight swap, Jay Rich for Spencer Dinwiddie?
I don't know if you could get that done. I mean, God, to me,
works, but it does.
Yeah, to me, the Nets would not be very smart to do that. But I'm sure once again, it's all going to be about other assets that you can throw in there.
Yeah, he only makes $11 million guaranteed next year, so that sounds like it works, right, Tiago?
Yeah, money-wise, it works. They're both expiring, right? So I think it works out fine. But I don't think it's going to be a one-for-one swap. I will say this: like Dinwiddie's production and efficiency went down last year, but a lot of it had to do with just the fact that Kyrie went down and he just kind of went on this like hero ball, high usage role. And I don't think that that's going to be his role here. And I think if he does come to Philadelphia, you're going to see much more productive Dinwiddie efficiency-wise.
Austin, buy, sell, Spencer Dinwiddie.
I think he's a perfect. I think he's a perfect. I think he's a perfect fit. I just don't. I don't know why that makes sense for Brooklyn.
I don't think she's
like Brooklyn. They're going to have ball. They're going to have ball dominant pieces in LeVert and in Kevin Durant and in Kyrie Irving. Why do you need a pick and roll ball handler with someone who's more like effective with the ball in his hand than Josh? And Josh, we saw Josh like wasn't that effective off ball as a catch and shoot guy. So I don't know why that makes sense for Brooklyn. Maybe you attach a pick or two to get it done, but I just don't think that makes sense for them.
All right, go ahead, Tiago.
But he was, to Austin's point, he was a better off-ball player in Miami. And I think where the fit comes in with Brooklyn is the fact that he can be a defensive guy. And does Kyrie, does KD, do they want to shoulder that defensive load for 82 games? I don't think that they do. So I do think there's a fit there with Brooklyn.
All right. Last one, we have Lonzo Ball, kind of the one of more recent trade targets. I'm just giving this one to Tiago. Go ahead, man. It's all you.
Love Lonzo, man. Lonzo's the guy that they need on this team, man. Guy who's going to rebound. He's going to push the ball. If you watch Lonzo and Zion, I mean, those guys had like the perfect harmony. It was Zion would sprint down the court. Lonzo would throw one of those lobs to Zion. And I see Ben, Lonzo having a similar relationship. I would absolutely love Lonzo Ball on this team. Not to mention that the Sixers don't have anybody who can pass the freaking ball. He's one of the best passers in the game. So I would love Lonzo.
Rob?
Yeah, I got no issues, man, bringing Lonzo Ball here. I mean, once again, and we've said this almost about every guy, what are you giving up? But regardless, I think Lonzo Ball has a skill set that can be beneficial here. And his dad is no longer in the picture, which makes me happy. Because one of my issues with Lonzo in the past were his jackass father, who I couldn't stand. But now that he doesn't talk to him anymore, I'm all in. Let's go. Come on, Lonzo.
Austin, buy, sell, Lonzo Ball.
I don't know if he's thinking.
So I think for Lonzo Ball, I obviously I think there's some noise to it. It's not a one-for-one scenario for me. I think you have to like attach something. I would be more intrigued with trading with New Orleans. Like, how do you get JJ Redick back? How do you do that? But I think
we don't want JJ Redick back.
I want JJ Redick back. I think you have to want him back. I think it's sort of like people undervalue his shooting and his ability to defend on the perimeter. Like 38% or whatever it was, 38% on 8% on 8 attempts per game is no joke. So, I think he has a fit with this team. I just don't know that I don't know that New Orleans values Josh high enough to trade Lonzo straight up for him.
All right, let's move on to the NBA draft. The Sixers have the number 21 pick in this draft as of right now, and a slew of second-round picks. Let's talk about our top 3 NBA draft targets. I'm going to lead off. You guys know where this is going. Team Tyrell Terry. The Sixers' biggest need are guys who are playmakers, guys who can space the floor. Shake Milton, Furkan Korkmaz are your only true players reliably that can space the court. So yeah, we lack playmakers. We lack guys that can get buckets for themselves, get buckets for others. The absence of JJ Redick, you touched on it, Austin. I'm going to piggyback off of that. That absence was felt last season. When the ball stopped moving, the Sixers' weaknesses were on offense were exposed. That is why Tyrell Terry is such a perfect fit for Philadelphia. You bring in Doc Rivers' offense, which is predicated on off-ball movement. Tyrell Terry is incredibly active without the ball in his hands and one of the best shooters in this draft. This guy thrives in the catch and shoot. He can pull up anywhere on the court and in transition, which is a perfect fit with Ben Simmons. He can shoot off movement. He just checks off all the boxes that I want as a guy in that first round. What about you, Tiago?
Chris, you better pray that he bombs the combine.
Please.
Because if he doesn't bomb the combine, he's going like top 15.
Like, how about like 4 foot wingspan?
Yeah,
like 5'11".
Now let's talk about him bulking up, which is just
20-inch vert.
Yeah, Tyrell Terry's like the fit with this team. I don't think he's going to be there, unfortunately. My guy, I think that along the same lines, I love Isaiah Joe, the shootout of Arkansas. I don't think he's going to last in the second round, so I do think that if they want him, they need to grab him at 21. Now, another guy who I'm really interested on, and you're going to hear his name a lot, is a guy out of San Diego State called Malachi Flynn.
Okay.
He's getting a lot of buzz right now. A lot of people are talking about him. He's a perfect fit under Doc Rivers. And I think he's that guy you bring in, you have him sit for a year behind Spencer Dinwiddie or another point guard and really have him take over next season. So those are 2 names I would keep an eye on in the first round.
What about you, Austin? NBA draft targets.
For me, it's Desmond Bane. Yeah, so it's for me. I've been listening. Don't worry. For me, it's Desmond Bane. I like his size and I like his lack of hesitation on the perimeter. And I don't think I don't think he's a ball dominant guy by any stretch. So I think he fits in right with like Ben. And I think he has a little bit of a creation package to him. I do worry about his lateral quickness and whether he can stay with like modern NBA 3s and 2s, but I think other than that, he's a pretty good fit.
Wow, I am shocked you didn't say Jordan Nwora. That is unbelievable. Yeah. Wow. Geez, that's upsetting.
Well, that's coming. Right. Don't worry.
I got to go another guy, Kyra Lewis. The Sixers desperately need a guy that can thrive in the open court, a ball handler with Ben Simmons. This guy's speed, shooting, and potential is through the roof, especially in the pick and roll. We talked about playmaking. This guy is like Derrick Rose. He is just a dart down the open court. He puts pressure on a defense. We saw Shake Milton was a revelation before the season was suspended, but like his development, what we saw from him does not stop me from putting the ball in Kyra Lewis and possibly drafting him at 21 if he falls to the Sixers in that first round. He can thrive on and off the ball. He can space the floor. Kyra Lewis is a huge name to look out for. Now I'll just finish off. I got Aaron Nesmith. Let me say this will require a trade up, but the Sixers have 2 top second-round picks to maybe move up into those like mid to late teens areas. Nesmith is one of the pure shooters in this draft. 52.2% in the catch and shoot. Just was an absolute beast. 6'6", NBA-ready body. He's not the shot creator. He's not the playmaker we talked about like with these other guys. But I just love that potential of Thybulle and Nesmith as a pairing wing coming off the bench next season. I think those 2 could be really fun to watch. Go ahead, Rob.
There's a guy that I want to, first of all, and if we like made, little like one-liners that you could put out, you could take this one from me right now because there's a sexual innuendo to it. I just want strokers, dude. I want the freaking ball. That's all I care about. I want guys that are going to light up the scoreboard from beyond the perimeter. But there is a guy that I'm asking about. It's probably from a fandom side. Tiago mentioned his name earlier. Chris, I've mentioned to you. So I'm a Tar Heel guy. I've been a Tar Heel guy my entire life. And although this was one of the worst seasons of Tar Heel basketball, basically because everyone got injured, including this guy, I'm very curious where you guys all stand. I know where Dibes is on Cole Anthony as an NBA prospect, especially if you're sitting at 21 and Cole Anthony is on the board. Is it a guy that the Sixers could look at?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I think that the Sixers pass up on Cole Anthony 21 is a borderline crime. I think that this guy's shot making potential is up there with the best players in the draft today. So I do think that from what they need from a roster moving forward, again, a guy who you take, don't ask any questions. If you need to develop for a year, develop for a year. But the potential with Cole Anthony is through the roof. And I'm talking about like a fringe all-star player. So I don't think he's going to be there 21, but if he is, you run to the podium, you take him, and don't ask any questions because I think he has big-time potential.
Bench scoring was a major weakness for the Sixers last year, and I see this guy as like a little Lou Williams-ish. Just my personal take. What about you, Austin? Any take on Cole Anthony and any other prospects?
What do you do though? Like, let's say with Cole Anthony, and I'm alone now, so it's kind of some quiet, little bit more professional here. But if what do you do if you feel like the risk of Cole Anthony morphing into like Raymond Felton is greater than him becoming a fringe all-star player? Because if Thiago is right, if he does become that, then you have at best you have maybe something that makes Ben Simmons a little more expendable, and maybe you use that down the line to like trade for Bradley Beal or whatever. But what do you do if you're stuck on this fence of like, do we extend him? Do we like what is he? Is he a good enough shooter? Is turnovers an issue? Is he just like an okay backup? I don't think it's a good use of an asset if it's a guy who is like his worst case scenario is like a fine backup point guard. But I mean, I think the talent's there. Thiago is right. I just don't think it's this easy decision to make.
Okay.
Yeah, but to Austin, to your point, I mean, good teams, man, they make it work. I mean, you see teams take swings at that 21 pick with guys who have holes in their game.
But you're assuming the Sixers are a good team.
Right. Well, it's time, that they just start developing guys. I mean, they have the system in Delaware.
Jameer Nelson's going to bring it home, baby.
I mean, you can't live in this world where you just don't develop guys. And it's if they want to compete with the best teams, they have to do that.
No. I agree. I agree. I just is he, if his floor is like an okay backup point guard, is that a good use of an asset?
Probably not.
Yeah. But this comment is, and look, okay. I know the season was cut short, but I watched a lot of North Carolina basketball last year. And listen, you want to talk about a team that was just bombarded with injury. I mean, everybody got hurt. And there was no flow to their offense. It ended up becoming, Roy Williams even said it ended up becoming this, we got to just give Cole Anthony the ball and let him make a play. So the turnovers went up because of that, because he had to become so ball dominant because that's what his team needed at that point. I would not be at all surprised if Cole Anthony is one of those guys who, didn't show his full potential in college, but got to the pros and was made more for the pro game. Yeah. I know that and you call it bias, whatever you want, but if he's there 21 and all these guys that you guys have made me excited about are not, you take them. You take them. And then look, the draft's a crapshoot. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. The Sixers have lost a lot.
So that the implication there is if all the guys that we're talking about, like Isaiah Joe, Desmond Bane, Tyrell Terry, if they're all already taken, that means that someone else who was projected to go earlier is probably still available. And then you have a situation where, like, okay, well, do we take Saddiq Bey, who fits in perfectly? Do we Thiago is going to ziggle anyone else's eggs. It's like it's the T Scavia brand. It's a copyright right there.
I think it's the second
but like what if Kyra Lewis is available there? What if Saddiq Bey is there? Those are all guys that you have to consider. Like, if the guys that we're talking about end up dropping, or that end up not being there, there's a chance that one of those other guys is available.
Right.
And then I still don't know that you take Cole Anthony over Saddiq Bey or over like a Kyra Lewis.
Right. I agree with that full-heartedly. Let's roll on. Anybody have any other NBA draft prospects?
Killian Tilly, second round.
Jordan Nwora. Hitting the horn. Jordan Nwora.
The brand is alive and well.
Yeah, it's back. It is back. It's good to talk basketball again, guys. It's been like just suffocating with the Eagles and the NHL playoffs, and now it just feels good to be back. It feels good. All right, last question, guys, before plugs. What would be your dream offseason for the Philadelphia 76ers? I'll lead us off. Al Horford traded without giving up picks. A couple good draft picks. Cough, Tyrell Terry, and Isaiah Joe. Cough. Joel Embiid getting in the best shape possible. An offensive system that features significant off-ball movement and just continued development from Ben at the free throw line. I don't think this is a reach. We saw his free throw attempts drop last year. That's an easy fix. Doc Rivers, get Ben attacking, get him to the free throw line. That's a very easy fix to get Ben involved. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I think number one for me is get rid of the Al Horford contract. You swung, you missed. I just don't think it works. I'm not willing to spend another year of Ben and Joel trying this idea out. That's the first. Secondly, I want shooters on this roster. I want guys that can space the floor so that we can stop hearing all the stupid fans talk about the fact that Ben Simmons doesn't shoot. If you have the other guys on the team that can space out the floor and free up Ben to drive the lane and let Joel go play that big man role in these pick and rolls, I think you're in a much better position. And damn it, draft someone who's going to play for you this year in the first or the early second round. I need someone who's going to make an impact.
Jalen Hurts in the second round? What?
Yeah. Go pick Jalen Hurts or the Nate Gary replacement. I don't freaking know. So that's it. Horford, shooters, good draft pick. Just one. I just need one good draft pick.
Thiago.
My dream offseason is a Spencer Dinwiddie. Draft a point guard who you can groom behind him. Grab a couple of shooters, one in the draft, one in free agency. And then, with the roster you have in place today, I like to see Embiid work on his dribble drive game, shoot off the bounce a little bit. We saw that a lot with Anthony Davis. He was spectacular in the finals off that dribble drive game. And then with Ben, attacking the rim, finishing around the rim, and working on that floater. So there's that 4 or 5 foot floater game that he's got to work on before you start seeing 2 3-pointers, because that's going to be there all game. So, yeah.
I was doing a video on Tyrese Maxey. That guy has a legit floater. Yeah, and I'm just, why can't Ben do that? Like, why can't Ben just do a little floater from like 5?
When you have prodigies like a Ben Simmons, they don't need to learn stuff like that because they're normally just so much better, and it's so easy for them to just go right to that they don't have to learn these nuances to the game. Right. And I think that's what kind of hurt Ben, because he was so good and he was crowned the prince so early that now he's got to pick these skills up as he goes on in his professional career.
Who's that other guy? Like Brandon Clark has a legit floater, I think. Anyway, Austin, what is your dream offseason for the Sixers, baby?
I think best case scenario and most realistic case, get off Horford's money, because I think that's a massive, massive weight lifted off your chest, not just this year but going forward. And you actually use draft picks, don't just trade them away for Josh Harris's nice new wallet. You draft 2 shooters, a guy like Marco Bellinelli in free agency, cheap, little, cost effective, maybe a little Jay Crowder on a mid-level exception, and you actually get shooters for the roster. Even though Jay Crowder is like very mediocre, he's still like, it's kind of demo. He's a 3-and-D guy, and he was starting for the Miami Heat in the finals. So I mean, he clearly gets it on the defensive end. But you actually for once make good use of the money, and you allocate funds efficiently, and the roster almost makes sense once.
All right, let's do plugs. You're up, Rob.
All right, no madness this week because I'm going to go watch Nate Gary miss an assignment tomorrow night.
Oh, wow.
Watch the Eagles. I did pick Chris will tell you I got the Eagles winning a blowout tomorrow. I do. I have good feelings about tomorrow.
Giants are good. Giants defense is good. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I know. But Chucky in Philly.
Yeah.
You know, this is the game I think where Philly tries to get it right a little bit, even if it's for 1 week. But you can always pick the madness. Normally on Thursday night in Jessica Town. I'm with Chris doing post games whenever we can. I'm Chris party on Broad. I'm just trying to, have fun out here, man. I appreciate you guys having me on. You guys to talk some Sixers. This was fun. Talk a little basketball. Got me all excited. I'm sure they'll demoralize me this offseason and do nothing and stay status quo. We'll just be sitting here going, "Oh, okay, we're going to do this again." But
Rob's gonna fail one of his students on Friday.
Well, fortunately, we are off Friday. Thank God.
For what?
Also, the teachers in service, which has been pushed virtual because our principal thinks we need a day off. Totally okay with that. The only problem is that just opened up a variety of me drinking a lot tomorrow night watching the Eagles, which will make for a really rough Friday morning for me.
There we go.
Totally. Tiago, plugs.
Yeah, so we're gonna continue working on the draft stuff. We have the draft guide out. Make sure you check it out. There's a lot of information out there if you're a draft fan to get ready for November. And then I'm also gonna be looking at Malik Monk because I think he's a name that folks have not mentioned who may be available. And he's another guy who may, have a room here in Philadelphia. So working on Malik Monk article.
Nice. What about you, Austin? Plugs.
Devin Vassell article coming out, I would hope, by the weekend. And then be on the lookout for some more film breakdowns. I think I'm going to do on Yeka Okongwu producing it. I hear he's like the next Bam Adebayo.
Cool.
So we'll see. But just getting back into the draft content, weekly column over at Last Out Media. And yeah, we'll see where it takes us.
Awesome. Make sure you check out thepaintedlines.com for everything NBA draft in Philadelphia 76, especially Tiago's in-depth breakdown, comprehensive guide to the NBA draft. If you're a Sixers fan, it is a must-read. If you're an action movie fan like myself, we are doing a John Wick versus The Matrix breakdown. We're going to compare each of those films on story, visuals, memorable moments, overall film grade, everything is going to be fun. That is Friday night here at the Painted Lines YouTube channel. I think we should just wrap it up. Make sure you follow my man Tiago, Krell, Rob on Twitter. Thanks for watching, guys.
Sixers win it! Wow!
Oh man, and being just posterized, Russell Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia